Hello, and this video is supposed to help you with your metric conversion using your place value charts. Goes with lesson 4 in module 1. Officially, there are only 3 countries that haven't switched to the modern metric system. They are the United States, Liberia, and Burma. Everyone else in the world already uses this system, so that's why we need to learn it. Here's the place value chart that we will be using to learn our metric system. A millimeter is about the width of a dime, while a centimeter is about the width of your fingernail. A meter is about the length or how long your desk is. It's also about the length of a guitar or a tall umbrella. And then kilometer, or some people pronounce it kilometer, is about the length of a couple city blocks, or if you've ever been over the Golden Gate Bridge, that's about 3 kilometers long. These other place values, the D for deci, deca, and hecto, we're not using in 5th grade, so you don't need to worry about them right now, but you do need to know that they exist and that those columns are there in your drawings. So again, a millimeter is about the thickness of a dime, so a centimeter is about 10 dimes thick or wide. A meter is about the height of a kindergartner. This little guy is a little bit taller than a meter, but it's the best picture I could find for you. So it would take about 1,000 dimes stacked on top of each other to be the height of this boy, or it would take about 100 pencils stacked on top of each other to be the same height as this boy. So 1,000 millimeters or 100 centimeters equals 1 meter, which is the top of that stick right there. A kilometer is about the distance from our school, about halfway from our school to Safeway. So from our school to Safeway is 2 kilometers. And if we were to convert that to millimeters, or the stacking of the dimes, it would take about 2 million dimes stacked to get from our school, Hearst, all the way to Safeway, or about 200,000 pencils stacked to get from our school to Safeway. Or if we were to go down to the kindergarten playground and ask them to lay head to toe, it'd take about 2,000 kindergartners to get from Hearst to Safeway, which would be about 2,000 meters. Now, the place value chart that you're seeing in front of you is attached to the back of the place value chart you have already been using on your previous lessons. And we left a little explanation there to explain that it's in backwards order because we are talking about how many millimeters it takes to equal a meter. How many of these connected it would take to become a meter, or how many centimeters it would take to become a kilometer. Most other place value charts are organized the other direction. Now let's start with some of your homework problems. If you look in your homework book, problem 1C says that 2.49 meters, or 2 49/100ths of a meter, is equal to how many centimeters? So on your place value chart, you're going to want to write the number first. 2, well, that's a little too big. Let's try that again. 2 and 49 hundredths of a meter, and we're converting it to centimeters. So you're going to want to look up here at meters, and you're going to want to see how many columns over, or how many hops it takes to get to centimeters. 1, 2, it's 2 hops to the left. So you're going to do the same thing with your number. You're going to hop it 1, 2 to the left. So that means you're going to move your number 2, 4, 9, because everything shifts 2 to the left, 0.00. Or your answer is 249 centimeters. And your equation for that would be 2.49 times 100, or 2.49 times 10 to the second, because you went over 2 columns, or 10 times 10 is 100, which you learned in lesson 3 earlier this week. Now for the next. So now let's move on to the next problem. So now we're moving from centimeters to meters. So you will notice that we're going from centimeters right here over to meters. So we're going to the right, so we will be dividing, which means we are taking 7 centimeters, and we're going to write that in our place value chart. So we have 7 centimeters, and we're moving to the right 2, because we moved to the right 2 when we were going from centimeters to meters. Our number to the right 2, we're going to go 1, 2, and we're going to move the 7 right there. So now we have a 7 right here. It's now in the hundredths place, and we have to fill that in with a 0. So 7 centimeters is the same as 0.07 meters. And we probably should put the extra 0 out in front of the decimal in the ones place. And if I were going to write that, I would write it as 7 divided by 100, because we moved to the right 2 columns, which is dividing by 100, or 7 divided by 10 to the power of 2, or 10 to the second. And this makes sense to us because we know that it takes 100 centimeters to equal 1 meter, and if we only have 7 centimeters, we know that we're going to be only part of a meter. Now look at problem 2b in your homework. And again, we're doing 1.7 meters to millimeters. So we're going from meters to millimeters. So we're moving up on this conversion chart 3 hops or 3 columns. So first we need to write the number in our place value chart, 1.7 meters, and I should probably write a little skinnier than that. And we moved to the left 3 columns, or we multiplied it by 10, 100, 1,000, so it's like multiplying it by 1,000 for the 3 columns. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3 columns. So our new number would be 1 moves up 3 columns, the 7 moves up 3 columns, and then there's zeros right here in these columns, and they move up to those columns because you're multiplying by 1,000. And if you're multiplying by 1,000, that's going to give you your answer of 1,700 meters. So if you take your equation is 1.7 times 1,000, or you can write that in exponent form, which is exponential form, which is 1.7 times 10 to the third, and the answer is 1,700 meters. Excuse me, 1,700 millimeters. It would take 1,700 dimes stacked on top of themselves to equal 1 7/10 of a meter, or 1 7/10 of those sticks. That's about the height of a kindergartner. Moving on to problem 2D, D as a dog, we have 65 millimeters, and we want to convert it to meters. So first we're going to write our number 65 on the place value chart because it's 65 millimeters. Think of 65 dimes stacked on top of each other. And then we're going to see how many meters that is, or how tall that goes up on a kindergartner or a meter stick. So if we take our millimeters and we go down to convert it to a meter, we're going to the right 3 columns, which means that we are dividing by 1,000. That went right off the chart. Let's try that again. We're dividing by 1,000. So we are going to go to the right 3 columns. So if we go to the right 3 columns, we take this 6 and we go 1, 2, 3, the 6 is now going to be in the hundredths place. So your 6 shifts over to here. Let's try that in a skinnier pen. Your 5 shifts over to here. And then you will notice that there's a blank spot right here, which means you have to add a 0 in because it's a placeholder and your decimal. So your answer is 0.065 or 65 thousandths of a meter. 0.065, and your decimal should be right there. And technically we should add the 0 in front of the decimal. So it'd be 65 thousandths. Again, if you took 65 and you divided it by 1,000, or you wrote it as 65 divided by 10 to the third. It's hard to see those division symbols, so let's try to get the dots a little darker. Divided. Mr. Hobbecker makes this look so easy. You'd end up with 65 thousandths. And moving on to 2E in your homework problem. You're starting with 4 92 hundredths of a meter, and you want to change them to millimeters. So we're going to write the number on the place value chart first. 4.92, 4 92 hundredths, and we are going from meters to millimeters. So if we're going from meters, which is right here, and we're going to millimeters, we're going to the left 3 columns. So we're going to take this number and go to the left, 1, 2, 3. So your 4 is going to move to that column. So if we move the 4 to that column, it is now in the thousandths place. We have to move the 9 3 columns. We have to move the 2 3 columns. And the digit that's right here is a 0. It's just a placeholder, so we also have to move that 0 to the ones place because you are timesing by what? You're timesing by 1,000 because you're moving 3 columns. 1,000 has 3 zeros. You could also write that as times 10 to the third. So your answer would be 4,920 millimeters. So 4,920 millimeters. And you would get that answer by taking your 4.92 or 92 hundredths and timesing it by 1,000. Or you could also say that would be like timesing it by 10 to the third, because it's 10 times 10 times 10 equals 1,000. Or you go over 3 columns, so it's 10 to the third. Or a lot of people have noticed that 1,000 has 3 zeros in it, and that's why you have this 3 right here. It's a place value holder. Moving on to the next problem. 2F, we are taking 3 millimeters and we're changing them to meters. So first write in your 3 millimeters, which is just 3 in the ones place. And then now we are going from millimeters to meters. So we're starting up here at millimeters, right up here, and we're going to the right down to meters. So we're going to the right, and every time we go to the right, that means that we are dividing. So we are dividing by 1,000, because it's 3 columns, 3 zeros, or dividing by 10 to the power of 3, 10 to the third. Now, we have to do the same thing here. So we're dividing, we're shifting to the right. So we would go 1, 2, 3. So the 3 is going to be moved here. Or you could show it this way. The 3 is going to shift here because you're going 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. 3 now is in the in the thousandths place. And then we need some placeholders. So there's a 0 placeholder here and a 0 placeholder here. And we want to remember our decimal, which is here. And we also want to remember to write our placeholder there for a 0. So our answer would be 3 thousandths or 0.003. So we'd have 0.003 meters or 3 thousandths of a meter. And again, we would get that by taking our 3 millimeters and dividing it by 1,000. Or, writing it in exponential form, we would take 3 and divide it by, and the division symbols are not showing up very well, divide it by 10 to the third. And that's how we came up with 3/1000ths of a meter. That means it's only a very small part of a meter stick, or a very small part of a kindergartner. And that's if we were to take 3 dimes and stack them up against a kindergartner. You can imagine how small that would be. And now we're moving on to 3A on our homework. So more of the same, the digits are just more into the thousands place. So we're starting with 2 and 638,000ths of a meter, and we're changing them into millimeters. So first we want to write down our number. So we're going to write 2 and 638 thousandths. And we are going from meters to millimeters. So we're starting here at meters, and we're going to millimeters. 1, 2, 3. That's 3 to the left. We're ending up here in meters, or excuse me, in millimeters. So if we're doing 3 to the left, that means we are timesing by 1,000. So if we're timesing by 1,000, we are going to be going 1, 2, 3 to the left, which means we're going to end up right in this box right here. So this 2 goes 1, 2, 3 over to here. So it means that this 2 is going to end up right here in this box. The 6 is going to end up in this box because it shifts over 3 columns. The 3 is going to end up in this box, and the 8 is going to shift to that box. And then these boxes would just have zeros, because technically there are zeros in these boxes over here. And that would just leave the zeros here, here, and here. So our answer would be 2,638 millimeters. So 2,000, that's way too big of a pen. Let's try that again. So it would be 2,638 millimeters. And again, we came to that answer by taking 2 and 638 thousandths, and we timesed it by 1,000, or you could also write that as 10 to the third. So that's our equation for how we came up with that answer. One or two more. So let's look at 3C, 39 millimeters to meters. So again, first thing, think about what you need to do. You should be able to do it before I do it on the chart. First thing you should have done is written down your number, which is 39 millimeters. So you'd write down just the number 39. Second thing you're doing is you're looking at millimeters to meters. So we're going from millimeters and we're going down to meters. 1, 2, 3. So that means that we are dividing by 1,000. Or another way to write that would be to write divided by 10 to the third. And the number we're dividing is 39. So again, if we go back 3 columns, 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, our 3 is now going to be in this column right here. So we're going to shift our 3 back. We're going to shift our 9 back 3 columns. So the 9 goes 1, 2, 3. So the 9 is going to end up in this column, the thousandths column. Let's put our 9 right in there. And then right here, this is a placeholder. There's nothing there, but this 0 technically that's right here shifted to that column. And then we need to remember to put our decimal in. So our answer is 0.039 meters. And it's hard to see my decimal point, which would be right there. So our answer would be 39 thousandths, or 0.039 meters. And again, your equation would be taking your 39 meters and dividing it by 1,000, or writing 39 divided by 10 to the third. And now we're on 3E. If you look at 3E. And on this problem, we have 5/1000ths of a meter. That means just a very small portion of a meter stick, kind of about the soles of the shoes of a kindergartner. So again, the first thing we want to do is write our number in the place value chart. So always put your decimals in, and then we're going to write it as 0.005, so it's 5/1000ths, and we'll put this 0 in also. And then we remember that we are moving from meters to centimeters. So we're moving from meters to centimeters, but that's only 2 hops to get to the centimeters. So that is times 2, which would be times 2 columns, 100. 10 times 10 is 100, 2 columns, or times 10 to the power of 2. And we are going to take our number and hop it 2 columns. So if we take this number and hop it 2 columns, this 0, it's going to end up here. If we take this 5 and hop it 2, it's going to end up there. This 0 is going to end up here. This 0 is going to end up hopping 2. It's going to end up here. And this 5 hopping 2 is going to end up in the tenths place, or right here. So our answer to 3E is 5/10ths, or 0.5 centimeters. And again, if we take 0.005 and times it by 100, and again take 0.005 and times it by 10 to the power of 2, we will get the answer of 0.5 centimeters. I did that one backwards. So that ends up being about 1/2 of a centimeter instead of 5/1000ths of a meter. They're the same measurement, just 2 different ways to say it. And our very last problem on homework today says the length of a sticky note measures 77 millimeters. Express this length in meters. So if we look closely at this picture, you'll notice that it's 77 millimeters, those little marks on the ruler, the teeny tiny marks right there that you can kind of see. And that's just a Post-it note. So again, it works the same way. First, I have to straighten it out. You're going to write your 77 in the place value chart like you normally would. 77, which is 7 tens and 7 ones. And we are going from millimeters to meters. So we're going from millimeters to meters. So we're going to write 70, well, let's get skinnier here. 77, let me change the color to black so it's easier to see. 77 millimeters, and we're changing that to how many meters? 77 millimeters to how many meters? So we're going to look at the millimeters, which are right here, and we're changing it to meters, so we're going to the right 3. And we know from experience, if we go to the right 3, we are taking 77 and we are dividing it, 'cause to the right is division, we are dividing it by 1, 2, 3, which means we're going 3 columns to the right. So 3 columns to the right. And if we go 3 columns to the right, we're going to shift this 7, 1, 2, 3, which means this 7 should be right here. So we're going to move that first 7 here. And then our second 7, we're shifting to the right, 1, 2, 3. And our second 7 should go right about in this one. There's our second 7. And just like there's a placeholder of zeros all the way up here, you would shift those zeros 3 columns also, which means that one goes 3 here. This one would go 3 here, and so on and so on. We don't have to write all the zeros, we just have to write the placeholders that are there to tell us the correct number. So 77 divided by 1,000, you can also rewrite that as 77 divided by 10 to the power of 3, which will equal 0.077. I'm going to have to squeeze that in on the bottom here. So 0.077 meters, or 77 thousandths of a meter. 77 thousandths of a meter. So you have your math down below with the exponents. You have your math with the exponents right in here. And you have your answer, and you have your equation, and your place value chart shows your thinking. So you've showed all of your math there. Again, we will continue working on this tomorrow at school. So be prepared to work on this some more at school, and hopefully you're getting the hang of it.